Hey friends, this is John Idan from the Yardbirds, and you're listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking podcast, a non-genre based, all ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studio is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on X at No Shock Pod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Big Strix Vinyl Records and Sports Cards, located in Rock Island, Illinois. New, vintage, and previously owned. You can find it at Big Strix. We'd like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
John Idan from the Yardbirds.
in the John Idan Group. What's he got going on?
He's got both bands, some live dates out there. Check them out.
Yeah, hey, let's get to that interview.
All right, good night.
Good night. John, welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'd like to introduce you my co-host, Jeff Untied.
John, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Jeff, and my pleasure, Eric.
We're really excited to have you. Thank you for doing this with us tonight. So let's get right into it. Beginning in a few weeks, the Yardbirds will be playing 3 dates in the U.S. Can you talk a little bit more about these upcoming dates and what can your fans expect?
Yeah, we're going to be in, we are going to be at the Tin Pan down near Richmond, Virginia. I think it's the last date we're doing. The tour was going to be a little bit longer, but things got a little bit messed up as far as the scheduling. So we've had to put off 4 dates. I think there were 4 or 5 dates that we had to shuffle around, and they're gonna get done hopefully in the autumn. And we're playing at the Ram's Head and one other, and I should be able to tell you, but I can't. It's all coming up very quickly, and they've kind of been arranged a bit quickly as well. So it's good to get the word out now so that we get a good crowd. And these shows, I believe, are going to be a combination. Jim's been doing like a storyteller show on the last tour, and we're trying to refine it a little bit more so that we get a good balance of all the best stories and the best elements of the history of the Yardbirds and a good performance time as well. You have to understand that, Jim is 83 this year. And I've been playing with him for close to 35, 36 years. And he was a much younger guy when I first met him, he was in his 40s. And drummed like he was, 18, with that sort of enthusiasm. Not that he can't still do it. He can really still drum. He drums with great passion and enthusiasm. But when you combine that with the traveling, It's the traveling that is the biggest problem. Getting from A to B and then all the X, Y's, and Z's. And then when you put all that into the equation, being 83 years old, and then you're on the drum throne, you go, well, a 2-hour kick full-on show is more than can be expected. You know what I mean? You know, so doing the storyteller thing gives him a chance to kind of do something that he's never had to do or never anticipated ever doing before, and that's giving the story of the band, you know, along with his own kind of natural humor. You know, the Brits have got a great sense of humor, and you know, so it's quite fun to listen to them talk. You know, that's kind of what's going on with that.
Excellent.
Yeah, well, besides the storytelling part of it, for the Yardbirds in a live performance, do you guys use any kind of visual, like back screen drops or anything like that, or is it just?
Oh yeah, there's all of that sort of thing, and bits of film. We have some rare film that, you know, you just can't. I don't think it's even online. You know,
yeah.
I think we're the only ones who have access to it. You know, and it's kind of one of these things that real diehard fans, much like myself, will have, you know, known some of these stories, maybe not in quite the detail. And that's just it. When you hear the detail from the horse's mouth, the story just becomes that much more real. You know, I'm sure we've all met people, you know, throughout our lives, and you hear a story from them. And a friend of mine knew John Lee Hooker real well, and John Lee would say, "That's $1 million story, but it's yours for free today." You know, yeah. It's like, you know, what can you say to that, Hook? You know.
Well, you know, tell our listeners about the band's live set list. Does the band stay firm with the set list from the show to show or year to year? Or does the band like to decide to mix things up, or how does it work?
Well, generally there's sort of an anticipation of what should be in a set. And, you know, doing it over all these years, I mean, you have to remember I've been playing with the band for 30 years now. You know, there were times when we were doing more new material, like when we were recording Birdland and things. We'd have 5 and 6 songs from the Birdland album in there, as well as we were doing maybe some of the Roger the Engineer material, some other oddball things, and a lot of the oddball things have kind of gone off to the wayside now, which is kind of, for me, I miss that. I like doing Think About It and, you know, odd little tunes that we used to do. But, you know, there's still enough. The Yardbirds music is so eclectic anyway. You know, when you're thinking about how rough and ready they were with like Train Kept a Rollin', and then you got Still I'm Sad, and then come the end you've got Happenings 10 Years Time Ago and Dazed and Confused, and it's all very sort of all over the board, you know.
Absolutely.
Musically, you know.
Very good.
So it's, you know, it's really all about and kind of getting back to the set, even with the storyteller thing. It's about energy. And I've always said to Jim, I said, as soon as the band doesn't sound like it has no energy, that's the time to stop, you know, stop playing. Because without that kind of, dare I say, almost punk energy, the music's not, you can't do the Yardbirds like you could do, say, you can't turn the Yardbirds into a cabaret act like you could say with Hermits or something, you know. Yeah. You know, it's just not that kind of band, you know. It's like you can, as soon as you round off the edges and soften it, you may as well not do it.
Absolutely.
It's like, if you're going to do that, just don't, you know, stop.
For sure.
Well, do you get involved with like the band's merchandise and what you bring on the road? Do you guys bring a wide variety of stuff or records, or how does it work for the band on the road?
Yeah, there'll usually be some release that's come out, like maybe Repertoire will have done some sort of a release, or, I remember when we had a Birdland one and there was we did a 12-inch record. There'll always kind of be something new, though, lately it's not, things are changing. It's like, times are changing in every respect. And I think, you can't expect it to go on forever, and it won't. I don't know how much longer it can, being realistic, not that but it does get to the point, it's like I just said, it has to have that energy or it doesn't happen. You know what I mean? It's like, that is the line.
Yeah, for sure. So, I wanted to get back to the live dates. The Yardbirds will also be performing on the Flower Power Cruise, March 28th through April 4th. Let's talk a little about how the band got involved with this venture, and then can you talk a little bit more about how many sets will you guys be playing on this cruise?
Yeah, we just do 2 shows, and we're going to be playing on the pool deck, and I think there'll probably be one that is like a midday type of show, and then an evening show. Though they're done either in consecutive dates or with a day off in between usually. Now we've done the Flower Power Cruise. This is probably I want to guess our 4th or 5th time doing it.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've been on it before, and and quite, they take to us very well because, we do go on and put on a rock show, like a 60s style rock show, where it's just like you get up and you play your music, it's like, it's not full of, there's no pyrotechnics. There's no, we kind of play much the same way as the band back in the 60s did, you plug into your amplifier and I don't have like any pedals at all. Sometimes I have a fuzz box, or a tone pedal, not even a wah pedal, like a tone pedal. And that's it. And you turn the amplifier up to 10 and it sounds fantastic. And off you go and you play music, It's not full of a bunch of hype, it's just get down and play.
I wanted to touch upon these cruises that are popping up everywhere. You see the heavy metal cruises and the glam rock cruises. You just have all the different genre of cruises. And with the Flower Power Cruise, do you feel like this is a trend that's going to expand even more? So much more because of let's face it, like, album sales are not what they are, so the band has to expand on different ventures. Do you kind of feel like this kind of novelty act, like a rock cruise, is a thing of the future for more bands to get involved with as the evolution of rock and roll goes on?
Well, I think it could do it, certainly, as far as like the genres that you're talking about there. I mean, for me, like when I think about I wouldn't say that I was born into that generation of music, I was born in 1964, and my earliest recollections of being a human being are like from about 1965, believe it or not, because I go back and music was always on the radio. You see, the radio was like on like all the time, and if it wasn't a radio, it was a record player. So I would be hearing things, and I've like looked at charts, the charts from Detroit, and a certain song will have been in the charts, and I'll go, that's when I heard it. And it was like May of 1965, or something like that. I'm like a year and like 1 month old. And my mental consciousness goes, I can remember that. I might not be able to physically put an image in my head, but I know I remember it from then. And then there's other things where you go like, no, I definitely have like visual remembrances as well as hearing and all the other type of things, that cognitive remembrances of particular things. So that whole generation of, say, like the Mamas and Papas, the Turtles, all those bands, that are sort of being collected together for the Flower Power cruise, is like right up my street, as far as how I was brought up. And so when I go on it, and particularly, I tell you, the Family Stone are on the cruise, and they are one kick-ass band. I mean, that band kicks serious ass. And the music, the catalog of Sly is so powerful that you don't, it's like, yeah, bless Sly, he's gone now, but, like you don't miss him per se because the music is just so good, like you sit and you kind of cry, because it's like, wow, this is like so good. And there are people, original people from the group, as well as his daughter are in the group. So, Jerry, the sax player, I should know his last name. There's people that have been long associated with Sly that are in that group. So it's like, it has credibility.
Fantastic.
Anyway, I'm sorry for banging on that.
That's okay. All right, so I was going to ask you about the John Idan Group. Can you tell our listeners a little bit more about your own solo group?
Yeah, well, funnily enough, I'm actually going to the Netherlands this weekend. I'm rehearsing up a whole new group. I've been living here in Germany for the last 10, 15 years now. And I had a group of guys in England, and we did a couple of tours of Germany when I first moved over here. But keeping it all together was really tricky. The music business is not an easy one. And also being connected with the Yardbirds, that kind of always that always comes first. So it can also kind of put spanners in the works as well from time to time. So like, all of a sudden you get some Yardbird dates come in, or some Yardbird dates don't happen. That often happens as well, and you've been kind of relying on that, and something doesn't happen. It's just the nature of the business. And then you get, anyway, so I had an English group, and I would go back to England and play with them, and they would come over here. We did a few, pretty successful things. And then I found new musicians over here in Germany. And just recently, I thought it was best that I had some, not differences with the guys I was playing with, but I just kind of felt that I needed a change. So I've found some guys from the Netherlands, which is to my northwest, and they're really great guys, really professional players. And then, funnily enough, they play, two of the guys play in a band called the LSB Experience, which is kind of like a Crosby, Stills and Nash type of tribute type of group. And they play the Flower Power cruise. And that's how I met them, actually.
Oh, cool.
So they're on that. And, particularly the Hammond organ player. I'm a big Hammond organ fan. And, he and I, hit it off really well, because he's, a dedicated, organ player. He's totally into the genre of or into the instrument and all of its genres. So he's, got some Jimmy Smith and Jimmy McGriff in him, as well as, being able to play like Greg Rowley and the more pop and Greg Allman type of player, So he's very much a dedicated Hammond organ player. And to me, that's kind of like a major well, I love it myself. I'm a bit of an amateur Hammond organ player myself.
Oh, excellent. Well, the outside of the Yardbirds, the John Idan project, you're going to be pretty busy with some live dates this summer on May and July. What can you tell our listeners about the upcoming German shows that you have going on?
Well, one of them is going to be here in my hometown. It's in what they call the Stadtkirche, which is the city church. And our church here is quite a famous church in so much as, well, there's an even more famous church in Dresden that was bombed during the Second World War. It was completely demolished. And our church here in this town is the prototype of the church in Dresden.
Oh, wow.
And so it's kind of like about half the size of the church in Dresden, but it's almost it exactly anatomically. And it's a beautiful church, and they've just literally redone the whole copper roof, which cost them a pretty penny.
Oh, yeah.
To keep it together. So we're going to dedicate some of the funds to the recouping of the cost of that. So that we've just kind of come together on that one in the last few weeks, and we just made the announcement the other day. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be a bit of a longer concert. We're going to do kind of like a not an unplugged, but like more of an acousticy thing to start off with, and then it'll go into our straight sort of, rock and roll, soul, pop, whatever, But stuff that kind of, I think my music fits into an atmosphere where it can be played. It can be played in a church. It's like, there's a lot of churches in Germany, as you're probably aware. And I did a gig some years ago in a small village church not far from here. And I was helping out a friend's band. And one of the songs that was in their set was Cocaine by Clapton by J.J. Cale. I said, you can't do cocaine in a church. There's no doing cocaine in the church, man. So we dropped it from the set, but they were all prepared to play it. I was like, no, man, you can't do cocaine in the church. But I think the music that I play, my own music, as well as all the covers that I like to do, are well suited to not being the devil's music. Put it to you that way.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
So so that's kind of what we're aiming at there.
Very good.
Yeah. So as long as we're talking about the John Idan Group, you had your own solo album back in 2008, The Folly. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about you? Because you played all the instruments pretty much on that album.
Yeah. Now that was a gas. It was a great time.
Yeah.
I'd bought a bunch of recording equipment, and I was living in a little cottage in Surrey outside of London. And it was a great place, and it was, funnily enough, I've been a bit of a nomad my whole life, not really by my own choosing, but it was the place I'd lived the longest in my whole life. I lived there for 9.5 years. Like, I'd never lived anywhere for 9.5 years. My parents broke up in 1969, 70. So I was only 6, and we'd already moved 3 times, So by the time I was like 18, by the time I moved to England when I was 24, I think I've counted, I'd lived in 13 different residences. It's like, so for me to live in one place for 9 years was great. Anyway, so I bought a bunch of, had old reel-to-reel tape recorders, and I was working up stuff, and then eventually I met a friend, made friends with a guy in a nearby village there who had a recording studio, and we digitized everything, and I got this record deal, put it out, and I'm going to license it all. and everything went really well until the crash of 2008 when the record was released. It was one of these things, a terrible situation, in so much as, for me, I was making attempts to like establish myself as a songwriter and as an artist. And I had this record deal, and I went to my local HMV in Guildford, Surrey, which is quite a big town outside of London. And there I was in the record rack with my own little black, or, like plastic thing. And then my albums were all in front of it. I was so proud. And then HMV went bankrupt, along with Woolworths. And I mean, it was a major. I can't even begin to tell you what happened to music on the high street in Britain. It was like somebody opened up the pits of hell, or like a volcano came and just completely destroyed everything. I mean, everything, and anyways, I was so proud of the album, and to have that kind of happen, and then it just kind of all went to zero. It all just went to zero. And but to just get back to the idea of doing the record, it was great. I can listen to it back and go, oh, I'd love to redo it or do something different, and that's what I'm going to be doing with the next one, which has been a long overdue. Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that album. You played every instrument on it. You're going through the process of getting this album completed. How hard for you is it, as the artist that you are, to walk away with it and say, okay, I'm done tinkering with it. It's done. Is it a challenge for you to be done with a song or a full album, or just talk a little bit about that process?
Yeah. Well, as it was my first one, and, the whole process was kind of like, well, writing songs. I write songs for the song. Like, if I'm just coming up with stuff, I just let the song kind of happen. And if it's got a certain type of groove or a certain type of feel comes out of me, I'm not going to try to, like, I have to write a song this way or that way. That's why it's so eclectic, One tune starts off as like a Birdsy type of thing. The other thing is kind of like, something like the Isley Brothers. So another thing is like whatever else, You just let the song evolve. And if you have, hopefully you have the capacity within you to give it what it's asking, because I always find that if things are kind of working right, the song will ask me what it needs, not what I want to give it, but what it needs. I like it. So sometimes you're not as clear as you should be, and having some outside help can be very important. And I probably could have had more, but this is one of the reasons why I was doing it myself. I had loads of friends in London that I could have said, hey, come on down to the house and we'll lay down tracks, but it would be like, no, these things were just happening like spur of the moment type of thing. And I would just start laying something down on the tape machine and it sounded good. I don't need to call somebody up to play the drums. I can play the drums, so it kind of happened like that. And, perhaps maybe that's, I don't know if it's one of the reasons why I called it the Folly. And there's two reasons I called it the Folly. In England, there are what they call these are small buildings, and they suit no purpose at all, but they are quite ornate, and they are usually miniatures. So they're like these small little, like a castle or a little cottage, but you could never live in it, you know? It's like it's a folly, you know? It's and they are called follies. And in my old area where I lived in Surrey, there are quite a few of them. If you just sort of walk around in the countryside, all of a sudden you'll come across this building. You look at it, you go, what on earth is this? Like, what does this thing do? You go, like, oh, it's just like a big tower with a staircase that goes up and down, and there's no rooms in it. It's not big enough to do anything but go up and down it, and there's nothing inside it. You go, what is this thing? And somebody told me, said, oh, that's a folly.
Well,
oh, wow.
Yeah,
and there's a whole park. There's a whole park of these things called Paynes Hill Park, not far from where I lived, and that's where the photographs from the album are taken of all these various follies. And then, of course, the folly of it all.
Oh, very good.
I know you started with the Topham McCarty Band and the McCarty Band back in like 1988 before you joined the Yardbirds. But can you talk about that transition and joining the Yardbirds?
Yeah, that was a great time. I'd gone to London on a holiday, and I had a guitar. I kind of ran out of money because everything was so expensive in London. It's quite an eye-opener. You went like, wow, everything is just much more expensive than anything I'd experienced before. So I was running a little low on money and had a guitar with me and went down Denmark Street, which I discovered kind of by mistake, really. Oh, here's the guitar shop street, wow, fantastic. And so I went down there with this guitar and I sold it to Andy's guitar shop, and the salesman was Tony Topham. And now when they said, oh, Tony's going to come and help you, he'll come and sort the deal out with you. So he and I are talking, and I'm going, Tony Topham. I know this is Topham from the Yardbirds. And the first album I ever had was an album called Reflections of the Yardbirds. And it had a very good liner notes on the back. And of course, Top is in the first paragraph. And so I'm reading this as an 8-year-old, 8-year-old, learning how to play Ain't Got You on the guitar, So, it stuck with me. And then, sure enough, I'm playing one of the guitars in the showroom there. I'm playing some Otis Rush thing. And Top says, oh, hey, man, you're playing Otis Rush. I said, oh, yeah. Yeah. So we were hitting it off quite well. Anyway, and then this other, but he was Tony to me at this time. And then the telephone had rung, and one of his co-workers said, oh, Top telephone, and it was, yep, Topham, So he and I went out after doing this guitar deal, which I think I got close to 100 pounds for this guitar, which is not bad at all. Paid my hotel bill. And then we went out for a cup of coffee afterwards. Just talking, having a good time, and talking about blues and this and that. And he said, well, hey, man, what are you doing tomorrow, around the same time? Come back and we'll have lunch again. So I did. And, and then by that time, he must have spoken to Jim, because he and Jim had a band together. And they invited me to go out to Richmond to have dinner with Jim, like a couple of days after our second get-together. So there I was like, oh, wow, yeah, fantastic. I'd love to meet Jim. And I must say, I don't want to sound big-headed, but this was like 80, what year would that have been? 88, yeah. April, May 88. And in those times, you couldn't we didn't have internet. We didn't have any of the stuff that we've got. So, I had like every bootleg record of the Yardbirds you could buy. I had, like I had Last Rave Up in LA. I had all of those records and I listened to them. They were like my favorite band, for periods of time, they were my favorite band. Sometimes my favorite band would be The Who, Sometimes my favorite band would be Cream, But there was a period of time where the Yardbirds were my favorite band for quite a lengthy period of time. And also, all I did as a kid, I ate, slept, and dreamed music. That's all I did, I didn't do anything. I wasn't into sports. I mean, I like playing sports, blah, blah, blah. I'm an active sort of person. But music was my deal. So it's like music was just on all the time, every day, all day. That's what it was, So, and I'm glad I spent my time that way back when I had time, that kind of time, because you could really digest things. So when I first met Jim, I got into it with him. I said, hey man, I've listened to your stuff and learned how to play. Like my high school band, when we played I'm a Man at our high school jam night, we didn't play the I'm a Man version off the 45. We played it off from the Anderson Theater record. I mean, that's the I'm a Man that we did. I played violin bow on that. On that version, just like, and my drummer had all of that sort of like military drumming that McCarty was doing with Pagey, like down to the T. Like he worked it out like I'm sitting there watching him. It would be like just like watching Jim do it in 1968. It was like I'm not joking. It was like this. My drummer in high school, Dave Toth, he was a monster of a drummer. Unfortunately, my dad got him a job as a draftsman at General Motors and never looked back, unfortunately. Got himself a proper job and married a good Catholic girl, So
very good.
That's how that went.
The Polars is a band that our listeners might not be familiar with. Can you talk a little bit more about the origins of the band?
Yeah, Polars they're the local elder statesmen of rock and roll here in Thuringen. And now people won't know what I'm talking about. Thuringen is a state in the dab smack in the middle of Germany. And it was given up after the war to the Russian, so the Soviets, put it to you that way. It was exchanged for West Berlin. A whole gigantic state full of forests was given away so that the Allies could have West Berlin. Anyway, and as the Soviet regime came into force and its, let's call them oppressive ways, with their ideology, things like rock and roll became, if not forbidden, highly controlled. Like highly controlled.
Absolutely.
Like only records that they deemed suitable could be pressed over here and so on and so on. And then if you wanted to play music and become a professional musician, one, you had to go to school and you had to get a master's degree in it in order to be able to do it as a commercial thing. And the bass player in this band, the Polars, his name is Willy Voigt. And he's just that kind of guy. Was like in the late 50s. He was a young, like 18 in like 1959 or something like that. He's like 83 or 84 this year. Anyway, so he had to get like a master's degree in music before he could even like play. Yeah, just to play rock and roll, yeah. So these guys went through all kinds of hoops and everything else, and then a much more oppressive situation in the 70s where, it got pretty heavy. The Stasi over here were, it was nasty. If you got called out or you got found out watching or listening to Western television or radio, you get done. They put you in prison. Like, seriously, it was like heavy. So, the Polars are, bless their cotton socks. Are they great? No, it's kind of like, they're not like the Brits doing, covers. It's a covers band. They just play covers,
Mm-hmm.
and I do it to kind of help them out and have fun. It's just some fun. But because you have to understand, like us as Americans, we're brought up into this stuff, and it's very organic for us. It's like in the water.
Right.
And then you go to Britain, and it's kind of in the water there because we have the same language and we have various bonds that connect us. And then the Brits do things in in their own unique way that makes the Americans kind of go, oh, wow, that's really cool. And if we adapt that a little bit, we kind of become a little bit cooler. But Europeans on a whole, it's a different thing. They actually have to learn it. They actually have to learn how to like clap on 2 and 4. It's not in their blood, Yeah. So, and when you have to, like, I went to a Donovan concert here in the next town from me, and he was playing one of his tunes and was getting everybody to clap along, and they were clapping on 1 and 3, and he could not make them clap on 2 and 4, and he was getting very, very frustrated. He was getting extremely frustrated with his German audience on stage, and he just said, forget it, just like carried on, but he couldn't get them to clap on 2 and 4. So it was like the whole feel of the tune was just like destroyed. And you just go, but he tried, but he realized he couldn't. And it's kind of like that. And a lot of the musicians here, it's a criticism I will make, and I don't think it's unfounded. And I've talked to a lot of German guys so that they kind of maybe look at their own musicianship and correct it. They're very, particularly here in our state, Thuringen, they want to see this music on paper. And they want to be able to read it. And then when they learn how to read it, then they play it. But as we know, you're not really playing music, you're playing what's on the piece of paper. And music is going to change when you perform it live. And if you can't go with the ebbs and the flows and the changes that are going to come at any given moment, you're not really playing music,
Exactly.
That's kind of, they're kind of a bit stuck, in that respect.
Fair enough. Well, let's take it to the Birdland album. That was your debut album with the Yardbirds. Can you take us back to the recording of that album? I mean, besides yourself joining the band, there was also some pretty good guest stars on that album.
Well, that was such a milestone for us. It was a great time. It was the best time, really. But, just to go back from like the McCarty band with Top and all of that, that went through its changes, and there was some thought that we actually should just become the Yardbirds, we should but the key there was that people don't know this. And now that Chris is no longer with us, I think the truth should be out. he was the sole owner of the name of the Yardbirds. And a lot of people, said, oh, Jimmy Page had the name and all of that. That's a load of bollocks. The new Yardbirds were the new Yardbirds for about 30 seconds because Chris had said to Peter Grant and Jimmy Page, he sent them a cease and desist, So don't stop using the name the Yardbirds. You're not entitled to use it. And it was basically because Jimmy Page was not a contracted Yardbird. It's never had been. And so with Keith and Jim leaving the band, that left Chris. So that situation remained. And without Chris's participation in a band, you could not call it the Yardbirds legitimately. So, but Chris kind of came around. He used to come and see the McCarty band with Top and blah, 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 blah. And before too long, Chris was like, hey, man, I'll come in and play guitar. We can do some Yardbird gigs. And that's kind of what happened. And then in 92, they got inducted in the Hall of Fame. And by 94, we were out playing as the Yardbirds. So, and with some stuff in between, get-togethers and a few gigs here and there around London. So, but getting around to Birdland, you see, even though having this great moniker, this great name, the Yardbirds, you'd think, oh man, everyone thinks, oh, like the Who, the Stones, the Kinks, the Yardbirds, the Beatles, but these iconic names. And you think, oh, it must all be a real gas to like be in the, you got it made in the shade. It wasn't like that at all. It was like a real hard slog to get, back onto the scene and get a record deal and have agents and, try and be your own man without having managers come and leech off you, that sort of thing. Right. So we were handling our own affairs and going through some member changes and everything else that goes along with being in a band. And then trying to come up with the goods for what could be the kind of material that would suit a modern day Yardbirds of the early 2000s, And I think we did a pretty good job of that. Yeah. I think, you'll never be the Yardbirds of the 1960s because they were, everything was new and fresh and like exciting and had never been done before, like that's, this is that era of music from the 60s. Everything was new, man. I mean, Marshall amplifiers were brand new in 1966. Nobody had ever played a 100-watt amplifier before that sounded like a jet plane. When you put, it's like, just that is an invention, let alone anything else. I mean, without those amplifiers, man, do you think Jimi Hendrix would have happened?
Exactly.
Or Cream?
Exactly.
It wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have never have happened the same way. It's just the magical synchronicity of everything coming together all at the right time. But the Birdland record was great because we recorded about 4 songs in Britain. We recorded Dream Within a Dream, Crying Out for Love. There's another one. I can't remember all the titles. Mystery of Being. Anyway, many of them were done at a small studio called Chiswick Reach in West London, which utilized the desk that Joe Meek had used and it was later put into the Chalk Farm studios. So it was this great old tube desk, all handmade, and it just had a cool sound. Anyway, and then we took all those tapes and we signed a record deal with Favored Nations. So we had a wonderful friend named Judy Wong, and Judy was married to Glenn Cornick from Jethro Tull. And Judy was a wonderful lady. She's no longer with us, but she knew everybody. I mean, she knew everyone back in the scene. She was a Chinese American, and I believe her family, they were very, very wealthy, and I think they had something to do with building railroads. Anyway, she was always a bit sort of embarrassed by the fact that she grew up in this privileged situation. And she moved to England when she was like about 17 or 18. And her sponsor family was the Averys, Mick Avery from the Kinks.
Oh, wow.
That's her sponsor family. Yeah. So she lived with Mick Avery's parents. Anyway, and she's actually, there's some other Jethro Tull film I saw of her, with her, and she's like kissing Glenn, her husband, off, kissing him, bidding him a good day on their journey down to the South Coast to go do a gig. I was like, wow, this is great. Anyway, but Judy knew everyone, and she was the one who introduced us to Steve Vai, because she was back in LA by this time, and she'd worked for Fleetwood Mac for 20 years, you know. She knew Fleetwood Mac when it was Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac, and the whole Kiln House thing and all that change and everything else. Judy was with them all through that period, all through those times, as well as Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks and all of that. So she was quite well hooked up in LA, and she came to see us in Las Vegas. And she was very impressed by us. This was back in like 98. And it took from 98 to about 2001 for us to get that deal through Favored Nations. And she did that with a photographer who became our manager for a period of time called Robert Knight, who was a dear friend with Jeff Beck. Robert's a great guy. He's got some of the best photographs of Jeff out there, you know, because he was that close. And Jimmy, he's very tight with Jimmy Page. Anyway, so they were all involved, and they were the ones that very instrumental in getting the guests, you know, getting all the guests together, as well as Steve Vai, of course, he's so well connected, you know. So to have all those people, we did a gig. I'll tell you this real quickly. After the record came out, we did South by Southwest in Texas, and we were on the bill with Richie Havens and Billy Bob Thornton.
Oh wow!
On the bill with us. Yeah, it was great. It was fucking great. I mean, I won't even tell you the story. I've told the story about meeting Richie Havens like so many times, but it wasn't so much that I met Richie Havens. Richie Havens met me. He was that kind of guy.
That's cool.
But for me, meeting him was like, in the way he was, it was almost like Jesus to a degree. He was so open and like, hey man, and because he of course had played with the Yardbirds in the 60s, you know, on the same bills at like, you know, the Fillmores and things like that. So he was there before us at this gig, and he was anticipating seeing his old friends, Jim and Chris, you know? And I was the first one to walk in, and of course, there's no way he thought I was Keith, because Keith's long passed, you know? But he put his arms around me in such a fashion that it was like we were reuniting after 30 years, even though he was only meeting me for the first time, and I was the only one in the vicinity. I was before them for about 3 or 4 minutes. I was the first one into the building, and he was like, "Hey, man," and I was like, and I just started rapping with him. His wife was there. And I said, "Jim and Chris will be in a minute." He said, "Yeah, I've been waiting to see those guys. I haven't seen them since 1968. So he was very, it wasn't like any confusion in him at all. He was very clear. He knew exactly, because I'd said, I'm John, And he was like, I know, like this. It was heavy. It was heavy. Anyway, so we did this gig, and we had Slash, Steve Lukather, and Steve Vai.
Oh, wow.
And they had all flown in for the gig. And I'm introducing them sort of one by one as they come out to play. And like, you can't imagine what, like, this crowd of about 4,000 or 5,000 people in this aircraft hangar. When I go like, okay, by the time I've gotten around to like, after introducing Steve Lukather and them going bananas, and then Steve Vai and them going even more bananas, and then I go, this is getting really kind of like ridiculous. I said, but ladies and gentlemen, Slash. The whole place just like freaked out, like, and Slash comes out. And he's just like totally Slash, and he's got the whole hat on, the whole bit. Yeah. and I'm like playing over, under, sideways, down. He's like in before the monitors at my feet. He's like right out in the front by the crowd, and it's like he's doing the whole sort of rock god thing,
Oh yeah,
with his hair all down in the hat. I was just like, oh, this is like too fucking funny. Awesome. It's so funny. Played his ass.
Yeah, well, we're out of our allotted time for the evening. Is there anything that we left off tonight that you would like to plug or promote?
Oh, no, just be good people. Peace and love to y'all. Rock and roll.
Fair enough.
No, there's nothing real. I'll ask you when we're done how I can plug this later on when it goes out.
Yeah. Well, this is how things are going to work out. Jeff, the editing wizard over here, will get it all cleaned up, and we're going to sound like $1 million. And
okay.
Then when that happens, we'll send you the link and share it wherever you can on your socials, and we'll share it on all of our social medias. We want to thank you for your time, and thank you for staying up so late tonight to do this. It was an honor. We can't thank you enough.
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Sorry, I'm a little slap happy now because I am tired.
Yeah, I bet you are. Well, we'll get back with you in about 2 weeks, and man, get to bed and get some sleep.
Okay. Hey, are you guys actually in Chicago? Is that where you are?
2.5 hours west of Chicago. We're right on.
Okay, where are you?
We're in Davenport, Iowa. It's called the Quad Cities. Davenport, Iowa, Moline, Illinois.
Okay. Okay, great. Yeah. Man, thank you both.
Thank you so much.
Much appreciated, really. All right.
All right.
Okay.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Tongue and pays their bills instead. Hide in the floodlights. Fight the grip of death. You can have the air you need, but you best not take one breath. Hey. Roll the dice. Take your chances. Everybody knows the game is fixed, there is no prize. Everybody pulls the plug and says their last goodbyes. Move to the sunshine, fight the grip of nights. If they ever take from you,